Good afternoon, everyone. We're getting to our start time, so we'd like to try to start. And please feel free to come up and fill our tables. We are going to have some time for discussion, and so we'd like our tables to be as full as possible. And then the back seats you can certainly have for overflow later on. So please come on up and participate in the session as much as possible. My name is Tim Kasten. I'm the Deputy Director of the Economy Division of the UN Environment Program based in Paris. And I'm very happy to be here today to moderate what I consider to be a very important and exciting session to look at sustainable consumption, a driver for circular economy, and climate benefits. Consumer patterns, along with production, play an important role in a circular economy. The way in which consumers, all consumers, buy their goods or services also play an impact in the circular economy. So we want to, in this session today, take a look at the impacts of consumers and how different actors within the consumer world and different consumer agents, if you will, play a role in this, and also how all of this impacts on the work that we're trying to do globally to address climate change. We're going to have five speakers all together. We're going to have them first in a group of three, and then we will come later with two more. And we will also be using an interactive means for you to participate, which I will explain as our first speakers come up. One of our first panelists is Roald Lepere, who is the Director General for Environment and International Affairs of the Ministry of Infrastructure and Water Management in the Netherlands. Welcome, Roald. Also, Hironori Hamanama from ICLEI Japan. He is the chair of ICLEI here in Japan. And Yuichi Moriguchi, who is professor with the University of Tokyo. What I would like to do is, if you haven't already, is open up your phone or your tablet and look at the website menti.com as it's listed here. And with this code 143379, you will log into this particular session. And once you get there, you will see the first question that you are being asked to participate in, and that is, who are you here representing? And it's a simple answer of one of these responses, and you will help give us an idea of what kind of an audience we have here today. And as you can see, as people are responding, we're starting to get the results on the screen. Good to see an overall mix, mainly amongst business, government, non-governmental organizations, with several participants from other areas as well. So I think we have a well-rounded audience to start our discussions. So this first part of this conversation, we're going to look at the role that governments play as consumers. And as many of you may know, the government sector is a large part of the consumer sector. In the OECD countries, governments procure about 12% of the gross domestic product. And in developing countries, this goes up to 30%. So public procurement is a very significant sector within the consumer world. And so we'd like to explore how some of these government procurement practices will impact on a circular economy. So, Roald, I'd like to pose the first question to you. The Netherlands is very advanced in terms of its government policies in promoting a circular procurement process. And if you could please comment on your experiences on the Green Deal and on circular procurement as a mechanism for public-private cooperation.
Thank you very much, and indeed happy to do so. I think that's better. Yes, sorry for that. I said I'd be happy to do so indeed. You referred to ambitious goals. Indeed, our government has put ambitious goals on circularity, on the circular economy, in its official coalition agreement. 50% reduction of raw material use in 2030 and full circularity in 2050. That's the man on the moon goal that is officially enshrined in our government policy, and we have drafted 5 transition agendas to realize that goal in the field of plastics, in the field of manufacturing, in the field of consumer goods, in the field of construction, as well as biomass and food. So at the more abstract level, we have our homework done. The goal is double, to the extent that indeed we want to achieve resource efficiency, but also actively contribute to the climate mitigation goal we have, to CO2 reduction. We know from research, like many people I suppose in this room, that circular economy could in total even reduce CO2 emissions by 60%. So there is a lot of potential to be gained, but we cannot do it alone as a government. We don't want to do it alone. We want to do it, we have to do it together with other actors, non-governmental actors, business actors, actually all the people on that beautiful circle which you showed us on the screen earlier, people in this room. And one way of doing so indeed are the green deals you referred to. Green deals are basically a target put by a group of organizations, governments, non-governmental actors, others, to achieve a certain goal. Just to give you 2 examples which we have green deals on, or let me take one. This is in waste from shipping. We have the biggest harbor of Europe in Rotterdam. We have a lot of waste from shipping. So the 5 harbors in the Netherlands, together with the government and the shipping companies, agreed a green deal to ensure that all the waste from these ships will be completely regenerated and completely reused. So that is an example of a green deal through which we try to achieve indeed the circularity which we have enshrined in this 50% target by 2030. Altogether, we have 250 of such green deals with altogether 1,000 different actors. So it's really become an instrument to reach that goal.
Thanks very much, Roald. And again, speaking specifically in the Netherlands, how has the promotion of circular economy in your procurement practices helped you as a government in the Netherlands to achieve both your circular economy objectives and your climate benefits? So you talked a little bit about where those are, but in terms of your goals for climate and your circular economy, how do they fit?
Well, first of all, I would say it's a matter of leading by example. That is the case, I suppose, for any single one of us, but also, of course, for us as a national government. So what we have done is that we have made circular public procurement the goal to achieve in all public procurement contracts that we enter into. And this is substantial indeed, as you said yourself in your introduction. In the Netherlands, we are a relatively small country, but still all governments together, national, regional and local, add up to 73 billion euros in procurement contracts. And at an EU level, this is even 1.8 trillion. So that is 1,800 billion euros, which is about 15% of the gross domestic product. So we really can make a difference when it comes to public procurement. And this is, of course, in terms of resource efficiency, but again here also in terms of reducing CO2 emissions. And our government has committed itself to reducing CO2 emissions through circular public procurement by 1 megaton per year. So we've also quantified the target we want to reach through public procurement. Very practically, what are we thinking of then? What sort of examples could I think of? Textiles is one. Both our army as well as our police, of course, use a lot of uniforms, textiles. and this is now fully circular. To be very practical, they used to burn these uniforms because uniforms are not supposed to come into ordinary hands and be misused, and now they're completely taken apart and reused for new uniforms. So that is what the government does itself in textiles. What is even more interesting is that this approach is now being lent or copied by, for an example, hospitals and healthcare institutions, which also use a lot of textiles. So we've seen that circular public procurement can also be an example for a semi-public and private sector to follow. So you can even reach more than just your own public procurement. And one last example I would like to mention when it comes to circular public procurement is that actually we have just inaugurated the first circular bicycle road. So what is more Dutch than biking over a fully circular bicycle path? So even in the construction sector, there are very good examples of circularity. And since CO2 use and material use, of course, is very large in construction, we're also really looking at making that circular, and the government procurement activities in the construction sector are certainly aimed at that as well.
Thanks very much, Roald. Very important points, leading by example. And in particular, you're actually above the curve in terms of your contribution to GDP in your public procurement at 15%. But the amount of procurement you're doing is very significant. So the leading by example is very key, obviously, for the Netherlands. Hironori, working with ICLE, and I understand that the number of cities represented by ICLE here in Japan, you're covering 30% of the population. Yes. So again, a very significant portion of the consumer world that we're looking at. And as a leading institution in promoting circular economy and procurement at the city level, could you share a little bit about the experiences at the city level and the results that you've achieved there?
Certainly. And Tim, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak. Cities, of course, can play and actually playing an important role in promoting sustainable consumption through green and circular procurement initiatives, consumer engagement programs, and waste prevention and management policies and actions. ICRI is a local, ICRI is it's called the Local Governments for Sustainability. It's a network of more than 1,750 local and regional governments across the world, supported by a team of global experts driving sustainable urban development worldwide. At ICRI World Congress 2018 in Montreal, Canada, local and regional leaders across the ICRI network released the ICRI Montreal Commitment and Strategic Vision, and this vision orients their path towards urban transformation and sets a course for delivering on the Global Sustainable Development Agenda. The ICRI Montreal Commitment defines low-emission, nature-based, circular, resilient, and equitable development as 5 interconnected pathways towards sustainability. ICRI supports these pathways through policy approaches related to governance, innovation, and finance. ICRI experts are on the ground, working alongside local and regional governments to anticipate and respond to complex challenges from urbanization and climate change to ecosystem degradation and inequity. We invest in capacity and knowledge needed to design solutions to these challenges and make decisions informed by data, scientific evidence, and local realities and pressures. ICRI leads knowledge exchange and sparks city-to-city, city-to-region connections worldwide. Peer exchange and capacity building are at the heart of what we do. As ICRI, We have been involved in circular economy and procurement work for many years through projects and initiatives aiming to support cities to improve strategic plans, waste management, and resource efficiency. In Europe, we have been part of developing European Commission's guide on circular economy and procurement, and now together with cities in China, Europe, and Japan, we'll be enhancing our activity through Green Circular Cities Coalition to support them to develop circular strategies and action plans which should be integrated with SDGs, aligned with local context and priority, taking into account ecological, spatial, and economic feasibility of resource use in the urban system. Now, next I would like to speak about the Japanese cities in this context, but can I continue? Okay, thank you. This year, in April, Government of Japan has announced its 5th Environmental Framework Plan, where the concept of regional circular and ecological sphere was introduced as its core value. This concept is derived from traditional view we Japanese take on nature and has potential to effectively address complex challenges of balancing human activity towards building a more circular and sustainable society. So now let me take this opportunity to introduce the case of Shimokawa town in Hokkaido, a northern part of Japan, as an example of best practices. Shimokawa town faced with serious challenges of vulnerable local industry, depopulation, and aging population since the latter half of 1960s, which triggered its citizens to form a study group to address these challenges with solutions and explore ways to build resilient and competitive industrial structure functioning around forestry and agriculture rather than manufacturing industries. That would revitalize local community and make it more sustainable, autonomous, and independent, supported by multi-stakeholder partnerships across the region and networks with external players. Many initiatives and projects have been implemented in Shimokawa, and today its population began to stabilize and tax revenue increased. Forest resources are sustainably managed, and forest biomass is being used as fuel to heating system at housing and public facilities, as well as greenhouse, where mushroom cultivation began, resulting in new job creation. Thermal energy self-sufficiency improved to 49%, reducing carbon emissions by 18%, generating substantial energy cost savings.